Hi, intrepid viewers. Lena here, coming to you from tomorrow, as always. One step ahead, you might say. So, as we watch history unfold, it's just an extraordinary time. And you've got to love, a lot of you pointed out the wonderful video by Arnie Schwarzenegger and what he had to say, the Michael Moore podcast. Yes, this was a coup. It wasn't just an accidental stroll through that got a little bit out of hand, no. So there's been lots of things happening. And also the FBI are now working really hard to rein these guys, and in some cases gals, in. Don't you love the ex-wives that are dobbing in some of these guys? You can just see it. Leroy's been in the shed, for 4 years, going into hyper-armed, survivalist, rat bag behaviour, as we say in Australia. She's really over it and she's dobbed him in. I love it, So they are being dobbed in. The airlines are also calling them out. So we will see this go forward. And you know what? You know what's really going to, get them in the end? The legal fees. I'll come to that. So thanks also for letting me know that with the impeachment, because I was a bit ho-hum about the second impeachment, but as you guys so rightly point out, he not only loses the money and the prestige flights, he loses his Secret Service detail. And lest we forget, who does Donald Trump owe money to? Well, you wouldn't be worried about the American banks, but you could and should be worried about Russian money, which is why I'm using the Russian cards, the oligarchs, and the Middle East. I'll just remind you with 2 words, Jamal Khashoggi. If they don't like you, look out, and he will have no Secret Service protection. And just before I get going, it's not a digression yet because I haven't started. There's been rumours, there are only rumours, that he might fly out to Scotland. Now, don't forget, his mum was Scottish. She was an immigrant in 1919 or something. So he's entitled to Scottish citizenship. But the head of Scotland and about 57 other ministers have really criticised that idea. And they're saying, apart from anything else, he wouldn't be allowed in because of COVID. They're only going to even look at an application to arrive if he's prepared to show all his documents on the money laundering that was so blatant around the acquisition of land in Scotland for his stupid golf course. So Scotland is not impressed. They are so not impressed. So go Scotland. All right, so what's happening here? Which one? I'm going to look first at, well, we know Washington will be really well protected, belatedly. It's going to look like Vietnam. You're suddenly going to see, you're going to see the helicopters and the mounted police and the layers of barricades and God knows the guys in their Darth Vader outfits. And I'm not so much worried about Washington, but there are threats in every state. So I want to look at that now. Using the Russian deck, it's going to happen outside of Washington on the 20th. Outside of Washington. All right. Okay. Oh, I love the Empress. Look, there is going to be some unsavoury behaviours. There's no doubt about it. I'll put it like that. These aren't particularly militaristic cards, but these are armed nutcases. Here we have the deals being brokered. This is because the Yeti has been taken off all the social platforms. This is making connections somehow. First digression, they may even be using the telephone. How quaint. Okay. But this is them trying to work out things, but they're suffering from the fact they haven't got the usual platforms to just rile people up. But it could even be the dark web. This is how they're trying to connect up to get the numbers in the different cities. This is again the powwow. Now this is one of my Giuliani figures. It's amazing how many figures in this look like Giuliani. Oh, second digression already. They've taken away some honorary doctorate or something that he got. That's not good enough. He should not be allowed to be a practicing lawyer. He shouldn't be allowed to be a practicing human. Shut up, Lena, get on with it. But this is GOP. This is the GOP talking, going, how are we going to handle it if it happens again in Georgia or somewhere else? What are we going to do? So this is them doing that. Time is against them. The GOP know to a certain extent they've blown it this time. Time, this is the card of time ticking by. It's not on their side. The Empress, as mother, this could be several people or things. It could be one of the female governors who comes out and excels in the face of yet another armed insurrection, coming out and reassuring her state, her people. I think that's the most likely option here. This is the Ten of Wands, the burden. This is the actual rioters, the actual insurrectionists are carrying the burden, as is the GOP. Suddenly the ground has shifted and it's now their burden. The GOP has to carry this burden of the insurrectionists. So my summing up of that is there will be incidents, there will be skirmishes, it will be ugly. I hope that the counter-protesters stay home. Please stay home. This is your auntie talking. Stay home. Let them be the only ones on the street. So it's crystal clear what is going on. Do not give them any ammunition for saying, oh, you know, if you want to protest, have your own protest outside of this, you know, on your own terms. Don't go. So I think there are going to be events, but hopefully not as critical. And Washington, of course, will be heavily, heavily, heavily monitored. Okay, so I love the term people are using for these guys, vanilla ISIS. They are fundamentalists, they are extremists, they have been radicalised, they've got the identical profile, they're prepared to kill for their cause, they're prepared to die for their cause. That's the ingredients of ISIS, and so they're just the white version, you know. Okay, so we've done vanilla. We'll have a closer look at vanilla ISIS. Yeah, I think the other capitals will have to be talking to each other because some states are going to attract more violence than other states. Like we don't see Connecticut all, you know, going off, but other states are going to be vulnerable. So the neighbouring states are going to be really important to helping each other out is the other message I have. Okay, so let's look at the insurgents themselves. What's happening in their world? Vanilla ISIS, what's happening in their world? Queen of Pentacles. Oh, the mercenaries. That'd be right. Oh, right. The Emperor. Oh my God. Yeah, that's really strange. Oh, look. Here's the thing. Now, it kicks off with the Queen of Pentacles. This is, I think, I've had this card before as Rebecca Mercer. As everyone's pulling funding from the GOP and stuff, Rebecca Mercer is still a senior player who is part of orchestrating this global chaos. I don't know what the story is really deeply behind the Mercers, but they were Cambridge Analytica. They created the misinformation for Brexit. They created the misinformation on Hillary. This is Rebecca Mercer. She's turned up in their reading because even though there's thousands of outlets, including QAnon and everything else that they all look at and listen to, she's the main financier for radical global destabilization by activating all these right-wing national groups, whether you're talking Poland or Austria or Lithuania, it doesn't matter. She's behind it all. The breakup of the EU, all of it. And they don't realise, they wouldn't even recognise her name, right? But I think very strongly that's Rebecca Mercer. And she is a true force for evil. I hardly ever use the E word. There they are. Well, what are they? They're mercenaries for hire. They're for hire, ironically, for the Steve Bannons, the Stephen Millers, the ones who are in turn the underlings to the Koch brothers and the Mercers. So, and they're proud of it, but they don't actually understand who's pulling their strings. Here's what they're not interested in doing, which is standing down. I'm sick of that phrase being used like it's normal. It is not normal in a democracy to beg people to stand down, but they will be asked to stand down. The difference is this time around, it'll be guys with bigger guns asking them to stand down, right? Who's in the middle of all this? The Emperor, i.e. the Yeti. They are disciples of the Yeti. This is exactly the same card with exactly the same meaning. This is the GOP who have still supported him. Even Mitch McConnell, how about that, intrepid viewers? Even Mitch McConnell is making snorting noises that he might support impeachment. They always let the Dems do the heavy lifting and then they claim the moral high ground. I'm sick of it, so Americans must be really sick of it. So this is those who are still supporting him. And that raises other issues about why Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz are still able to walk around. I'll look at that too in a minute. Okay, so this is the GOP, how to rein in the Emperor. Now, here, it's funny how it works. This is the behind it. This might be a bit of a stretch. This looks to me like Don Jr. and the inflatable Kimberly Guilfoyle. It actually looks like them, right? And now this video has emerged of them partying prior to the invasion of the White House. So why have they turned up here? I think they don't have the same rapport with the base as the Yeti does, but they think they do. This card is also repeating. I shuffled and raved on, and here it is again, the burden. So Don Jr. and Kimberly are actually a burden on the American taxpayers, but they are also going to be feeling this burden big time because they have, I don't care what they've done behind the scenes because they've blatantly failed, they have publicly supported him and they will have to deal with the base. So in terms of vanilla ISIS, this is their peak moment coming up. After this, they will still be around. They are not new. They're not going to completely evaporate, but their power is sort of sapping away. The other thing I want to say about their legal exposure, I'll bet you anything, the Yeti on his way out is going to say, oh, I'll pay all your legal bills, you know, like, you know, I love you guys. And of course, not just, in fact, run off with their money. What's going to bring them undone over time as a group? How are these working class guys going to pay $250,000, $500,000 in legal fees to defend what is going to be really heavy charges? And that's going to pit them against each other. They're not going to get any GOP money. So this is the thing I predict will bring them undone in the end. I'm talking a year from now, 2 years from now. That's going to be the clincher. They're all going to be in massive debt. And I couldn't be happier. Now, just a couple of legal things to finish. Who's heard of Article 14? I certainly hadn't till 2 days ago. So Article 14 hasn't been used since the Civil War. And it's about if lawmakers are demonstrated to be seditious or betray the country or anything, they can be removed from office. It's not quite impeachment, but they're not allowed to sit in the Congress or the Senate or something if they have been proved to be seditious. So let's have a look. Will Nancy and the Dems get up with Article 14, or will it be overridden and they'll just do a censor on them or something? That's not good enough. Slap on the wrist, not good enough. Will they invoke Article 14 or not on those lawmakers who have still stood by Trump? Will they go with Article 14? What flew out the world? To the rest of the world, it seems like a no-brainer, but we're dealing here with different people. Okay. So it's the obvious thing to do to put an end. The world is the end of the major arcana and the end of a huge cycle. And if you want to stop this, you have to start using your implements. But having said that, we'll see. In the past, the Justice card star, oh, my USA card. Oh, I'm surprised. Maybe they will. Maybe they will. Oh, I do love being surprised. Okay, so like I said, the world is watching every step of this. In the past, recent past, in relation to this question, they've kept saying we're going down the legal route, we will do it legally and within the realms, but this is cutting through. It's very important. The Ace of Swords is the truth seeker. So there's a bit of grit, bit of determination. What's underlying the reading and the question? Oh, the star, the USA card, everything that was good about the birth of America, and there was a lot that was not so good, particularly if you're Native American or Mexican for that matter, as you had your country stolen too, and Hawaii, you know, the list is endless. The destabilization of Latin America. We won't go on about what really happened, but this is the dream of America and the dream that is represented by America. The best of is underlying their quest. Over at the Two of Cups, agreements, pacts coming together. There might be some agreement. Things are so bad and are not going to improve between now and the 20th or on the 20th. I think the GOP will be forced to come to the table to say the least they can do is do something to stop Josh Hawley having a career. Like, we know his book contract's been cancelled. We know the newspapers in his, where's he from, Missouri or something, have asked for his resignation. Maybe that's what happens. Maybe they come to an agreement and they say to Cruz and to Hawley, resign, or we will use Article 14. Could be that. In any event, they're not going to escape the judgment. They're not going to get away with it. It is not going to be business as usual for either of those men. It's not all of the naughty Republicans, but certainly Hawley and Cruz will not escape judgment. Oh, I think we're so beautiful. All right, now I want to have a look now quickly at the new Attorney General, not sworn in yet or anything, I don't think. And I'm sorry, I don't even know his name. I'm normally a bit more onto it. But what I do know, and what's important, is he was the guy who prosecuted the Oklahoma bomber. So remember, that was the biggest act of domestic terrorism until this point. And it was 168 dead or something. It was truly dreadful. And he's got a history of going after white supremacists. So he's the man. So let's see, are we going to get joy from the new AG? Correct me if I'm wrong. He might not have been decided yet. His name might just be in the ring. Oh, what's going to happen? The new AG. The moon fell out. Things were a bit unclear. Okay. The new AG. Is he going to make an impact? The new AG, is he going to make an impact? Certainly got his work cut out for him. So I'm going to leave the moon in the middle there. In the past, underneath. Oh, Queen of Swords is there too. I think that's Kamala. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Love that. Okay. So at the moment, things are very muddy. And I think muddy in several ways. This is also a card of huge emotion. And of course, all of you are being very emotionally taxed and drained through all this stuff going on. But we have to keep in mind, the universe has a bigger picture here, i.e. Pluto. Now, the moon at its base level can be lies and deceit, not marvellous. There's a degree of mental instability around the moon. I'm not suggesting this person is it, but he's dealing with people who are mentally unstable because they're literally cult members. And there's all this fudging going on. It's so unclear. The core of what he has to set out to do might be clear to him legally, but it's very hard to get a handle on what is emotionally driving these people. But also, what's emotionally driving him? Well, the root of it, this is the night of emotions. The guardian of the emotions and making an emotional offer. I guess what I'm picking up here, which I didn't expect, is he's got to really understand what emotionally pushes these guys. He's thinking, I think, too much with his head and his legal. I think this is Kamala Harris, the Queen of Swords here. Both cerebral people, both very fine legal brains. He's thinking cerebrally, but for it to make an impact on the nation, he has to acknowledge what is emotionally pushing them to this, because the narrative, the legal narrative, has to include this for the majority of Americans to really understand it. This is the big lesson for America, by the way, which I'll come to in a minute. It's behind it, the Knight of Pentacles. He's done the hard work up until this point, right? slow and steady. He's not theatrical. Pity. It's a big pity Avenatti shot himself in the foot and then the head, isn't it? He would have been great as a sort of theatrical persona talking legal stuff. We need a new Avenatti. This guy isn't it. This is slow and steady, but that's okay. He has to make these charges stick. He has to get the right charges to the right people to make it happen. This is going to cause yet another huge upsurge and soul searching in America. Pluto disrupts and leaves nothing unturned. America is heading for its Pluto return. I stress again, not an astrologer, but I would advise looking at some of the good political astrologers who are out there. The next 4 years are really important. It's not over as soon as the Yeti lands in the Bahamas or in Scotland or in a padded cell. The next 4 years are really critical to reinvent the country. And it has to be reinvented. It cannot. Pluto is saying, you can forget the flip-flop GOP, Dems. I think it's the end of the two-party system, by the way, but that's another video. It's more than that. It's deep stuff. This is really at the heart of the republic. And what does that mean? And to quote Teddy Roosevelt, to be a patriot means protecting and standing up for the country, not the president. So the whole root and branch has to be pulled out, right? Everything has to be questioned. And again, even though it wasn't that many, the fact there were people who were ex-serving members and some current members of police forces and the armed services, it has to be a cultural change. And it's like the Black Lives Matter thing. We've got to be optimistic too, right? Some of those scenes in the midst of that, to offset the horror of the outright murder of George Floyd and so forth, you had those extraordinary scenes. You've had the head coach of is it the Celtic, the Boston Celtic? I don't know. Refusing a medal and saying how much they'd learnt as a club by taking on these issues. It's deep. It's got to start at school. It's got to be a complete reinvention and a reclamation of history. It's North versus South again, but in a different way. Because there's many fabulous things about the South. You don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but it's certainly not race relations. And it has to be reinvented. And I think this new generation, even younger than the millennials, the Zoomers, they're different. They're downloading, they've come with different energy, they've come with a clarity. These are the ones who are like 14 to 18 and 20 now. They're going to see things with clear eyes. They don't understand this tired old vendettas against people on the colour of their skin, you know. So it's like these old things, all these old grievances have to be put to bed. And Pluto, between now and 2022, is going to push the United States into having to do it. And because this was about the new AG, whoever it turns out to be, they will be instrumental in that. Okay. Wow. Before I forget, 2 things. One is, on the night of the inauguration, I'm on a collaborative thing with Johnny from Tara's Apprentice, I think Jen Lynn, and I think Becca, and we're doing an aftermath of the inauguration, and that starts on the 20th your time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And so hopefully I'll see you on that. That's Johnny's channel. And also, if you want readings, I'm taking readings again and really enjoying it. And thank you guys so much for everything, all your support. Let there be more love. Okay, bye now.